Hi, this is Laura Levenson from Weichert Workforce Mobility Advisory Service Practice. And I'm here today with Adam Bowlby, our manager of the global supply chain. We're here today to talk about sustainability in mobility. That in itself is a mouthful. And well, to start things off, I love the question why. Why are we here talking about sustainability in the first place? And that's a really good question. And I already have an answer for that from the Mobility magazine from Worldwide ERC that's current out there today. 90.5% for the most business leaders, the relocation of employees is not top of mind when they think about environmental sustainability. And at the same time, senior corporate HR leaders are taking sustainability as a serious matter and are planning to implement real changes to achieve their goals. So 90.5% of senior HR leaders reported that their organizations possess a sustainability strategy approved by top leadership. At the same time, another very important stat is corporations are leveraging their supplier networks to devise and deliver on sustainability goals, with 56% encouraging or requiring suppliers and business partners to meet specific sustainability criteria. So to me, that's in itself enough of a reason for us to be having this conversation. But in preparation for this chat today, Adam and I have talked about a few different questions. And so we'd like to share with you our little discussion about this. And then at the end, we'll open it up for questions from you, our listening audience. So starting right out from the beginning, Adam, we decided to call this Sustainability and Mobility to set the stage and scope of our discussion. Can you briefly help us understand aspects of sustainability that we're going to focus on today and what we'll leave to the side for now and why? Like, why have we chosen what we've chosen for today?
Sure. And thanks for having me, Laura. Really
Sure.
excited to be here today. At Weichert, we take ESG very seriously. Today, we will be focusing on the E and the G of ESG. So that will be specifically the environment and government aspects. We'll be looking at what we do here at Weichert today and in the future, and also the impact that this is having across mobility as a whole.
Terrific. And it is one of those things, like it comes up a lot. The terminology has changed so many times over the years. I mean, from my point of view, sustainability used to just mean the environmental piece, right? So that whole social piece, which is more like DEI, we could spend hours if we were going to try to cover it
Absolutely.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
don't
for
think we would
now,
do it justice trying to cover both today.
there you go. So why is it important for mobility companies to focus on environment and governance? I mean, you and I are passionate about this topic, but in your opinion, is it client demand? Is it the right thing to do, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. We've always had clients who had their own areas of unique interest that they were focused on, important to them, and we've always adapted. Where I think sustainability is a little bit different is it touches on every company, regardless of size, and it impacts our everyday lives outside of business. Greenhouse gas emissions and the negative impacts they have on our environment are real, and we're seeing those impacts today. So partnering with groups like the Carbon Disclosure Project, SBTI, and EcoVadis, those are creating opportunities for companies to collaborate and work toward the greater good so that our next generation can live a similar lifestyle like we are.
It's so important. I mean, I know you have babies. I have I have young adult children who are very passionate about the environment, and it's very easy to lose hope. But on the other hand, there is serious interest in these topics and careers around how we can solve some of these problems. So there's definitely hope. What do you see as the potential impact, though, of not embarking on these initiatives? I mean, that's a key point because not everyone is interested.
Right. So aside from the real world impacts that we see and the impact on the weather and the earth, From a business perspective, this is a core value of a lot of the organizations that we work with or prospective clients that we would like to work with. So not embarking on these initiatives are really going to limit our opportunities to work with a significant piece of our client base. Clients want to see that their supply chain goals are aligning with theirs, their core values align with theirs. And we're doing something similar as we're looking through our supply chain partners and evaluating who we will work with.
Couldn't agree with you more. I mean, we have in advisory services, we have so many different clients we work with, and it's very common for me to have to open up a client's web page just to understand what they're doing. And I would just anecdotally, I would say probably a good 80 to 85% of the time, that home page, regardless of the industry, will have something about sustainability right there. So, that brings up a couple of questions in my mind, how much of it is real and how much of it isn't. But more importantly, for now anyway, who isn't participating in these initiatives? Why aren't they? And especially in the supply chain. And what are the types of challenges that we have and that our partners have, those who are participating and even those who aren't, in trying to keep up with these efforts?
So I think we've got some pretty common challenges or hurdles that our clients and our partners in the supply chain see. It's really an overwhelming thought. There's so much information out there. It's kind of a developing area within business. So we often hear that this isn't really applicable to us due to our small footprint or the nature of our business. They may say they don't have the resources available or there's a cost associated that's prohibitive. Oftentimes we find that suppliers are doing things in an informal way, and maybe they're just not getting the recognition that they could be. So there's a few different areas that I think through conversation we can kind of guide our partners and help them move their program forward as we are.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally understandable. We have some providers, I'm thinking about destination service providers who move 10, 20, 50, 100 of our people on an annual basis. And so they have the bandwidth to put some, dedicate some effort towards that. But there are certainly other suppliers where they may see one or two or five moves a year or less. And so asking them to participate on the same level is obviously not realistic. We understand that.
Right.
Yeah. So let's shift our conversation a little bit over to governance. And you started to talk about this a little bit before, but if you could give us maybe a little more detail on who are the key collaborators that we're working with and how exactly we work with them.
Yeah, sure. So as we were determining how we were going to start to develop our ESG program and really push it forward, as I mentioned, there's just so much information out there, it can be overwhelming. And so one of our clients actually brought a company to us called EcoVadis. And EcoVadis is our partner in this space. They essentially are able to look at some of the policies that we have in place, the actions around those policies, and the data we have supporting that, and quantify with a score where our program stands. In addition to that, they provide a framework for improvement. So if they see we're lacking in a certain area related to environmental policies, or we don't have data related to our greenhouse gas emissions, for example, they guide us to improve our program, and similarly make recommendations on how we can help push that through our supply chain.
I remember our first experience working with EcoVadis and how much time and effort you personally put into that. So claps to you on that. And I also know that we were, I don't want to say surprised, but we were quite proud to earn bronze status on our first try. And I know that I'm pretty sure we're still at the bronze status. So how's it looking for us to get to the next level?
Yeah, so our first year we did receive bronze, like you said. The second year we improved about 8 points, but that still put us in the bronze category. So while we are making progress, we have to follow their roadmap towards success, and they've identified a number of items as high impact, high visibility that we plan to implement before our reassessment in December. And we're very hopeful that will push us up into the next level of sustainability, which is their silver medal.
Great. Well, I'm counting on it.
Yeah.
And I think, it's interesting, right? So you said we increased 8 points, but we still didn't quite make it. I appreciate the rigor that goes around this. And I'm glad to hear that there's no exceptions, right? That it's strict. And at the same time, I'm also really glad to hear that, we're not giving up the fight, because it's easy to get discouraged at the same time as we want, these independent bodies to be strict. The downside of it is it could be for some organizations a kind of a pivot point to like, all right, that's enough. We can't do any more. So
Right.
I'm really pleased to know that we're continuing the good fight to get to silver.
Yeah, and I think
Fingers
that's an
crossed.
important piece of context is this is really a journey. Sustainability is a journey. We're very much in the early phases of that. A lot of our clients are looking at 5-year, 10-year, 25-year plans. And that's the type of strategic thinking they're expecting to see from us as well.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, on a personal level, I know sometimes I feel like, ugh, why am I bothering to compost? But if everybody had that attitude, nobody would do it, and then we would never get anywhere. So it all follows. Every
That's
piece that
exactly
we,
right.
yeah, every piece matters. So we talked about this roadmap. Can you tell us a little bit more about some of the initiatives then in a little more detail that Weichert is pursuing?
Yeah, our strategy around the roadmap is to take some of those high impact, high visibility items and implement them so that our score will reflect that at year end. So from last year, one of the things we've done is really expand our greenhouse gas reporting capabilities. We've now got 2021 and 2022 complete, allowing us to look year over year. We had about a 2% decrease. So now at the end of 23, we'll have 3 years of data and we'll be able to start setting targets going forward. That's something that EcoVadis is really looking for in their evaluation. We've also enhanced our supplier code of conduct to align with their expectations around the environment and suppliers doing business in an eco-friendly way. And then finally, we're looking at this as a key supplier selection factor. So cost, quality of service, always going to be the cornerstones of our network. Those are things that drive our business. It's what our customers expect. But this is a differentiator. Who's doing this in the most environmentally friendly way? And how can we promote that to our clients as our sustainable partners?
Obviously, I mean, to me, what you just said, and I'm really, this is learning for me too. I mean, I don't think anyone could say that what you just described is performative, right? I mean, this is a serious commitment. We are, of course, standing behind cost quality. Those are always things that we're looking for. But as you just very well stated, this differentiation is amongst the top three, top five criteria that we're looking at when we select. And that's really important because it's so easy to just, create a website, put a bunch of stuff up on it, make it look like we care about the environment and so forth. But to me, this is a really great demonstration of our commitment to this. So having said that, we talk about specific suppliers that can really help us. And we have, very different clients, constituents, and customers, right? And suppliers in the mix. So
Mhm.
maybe you could, I mean, we've already talked a little about in supply chain specifically, right? Like fuel efficiency, electric vehicles. But like from where you sit, do you have any comments about how clients and then the employees who are actually relocating can also participate in this effort?
Yes, I think one really can kind of inform the other. So our clients have the ability to make policy enhancements or provide incentives to their employees who make green decisions. I know you've
Mhm.
done some work in that space, putting together different value around different services or tasks through the relocation and the impact those have. We also have suppliers that are insisting we work with companies who are focused on this. And so at implementation, we kind of open up the book and talk through our supply chain and look at things like EcoVadis scores, who's tracking emissions, and they identify those as the suppliers they want working on their account. When it comes to actual service delivery and things that relocating employees can do, when they have the ability to make purchasing decisions, that's really when they're empowered. So, is there a benefit to renting an electric vehicle versus a traditional gasoline vehicle? Maybe you're able to use public transit and you don't need to use a vehicle at all. We're always coming up with kind of best practice questionnaires and scenarios to give them insight to what to expect and how they can limit their footprint once they arrive in location for their assignment or their permanent move.
Absolutely. You mentioned that in my area, which is so true, we have the opportunity to impact client decisions around how they might reward or incentivize employees who make such choices. And I'm happy to say that it's coming up more and more. Well, we don't need to, how do we make the shift from reimbursing mileage, right, on gas to now how do we reimburse charging station fees and things like this? So this is becoming a very common and progressive question. And our most progressive clients do have some either rewards or possibly cash out options. Lots of different things are on the table. It's still very new in terms of what types of incentives there can be. I have, with just a few of our clients, worked out a scorecard where they can just sort of self-evaluate on a number of different dimensions how they're doing when it comes to sustainability efforts. And those are mostly, well, not really, actually. I was going to say mostly geared at the customer, the person who's actually moving, but it's really across the board. And so those kinds of tools I foresee being used more and more as we go forward. And that's just simply because I'm already seeing it in the last couple of years, especially, interestingly, the pandemic gave us a lot more hybrid solutions. And I see many clients keeping those options for, partial destination service done virtually, the survey for household goods done virtually, and so on. But while we're talking a little bit more forward thinking, what do you think? Not so much crystal ball, because I have a feeling we're going to get that question. We always do. But what do you foresee clients wanting from us? That's a little different because we can kind of talk to that. Any comments there?
Yeah, I think they're expecting to see us doing what we're doing right now, which is putting together a formal plan in this place, looking to make year-over-year improvements, working with them on their policy enhancements to improve their program, working with our suppliers to improve their programs, and just showing that there's a long-term focus on this. It's not transactional. It's not checking a box. It's something that we feel really strongly about here at Weichert, and we're putting the resources to ensure that we're at the front of the pack here in mobility, in the ESG space and sustainability in particular.
I couldn't have said it better. I fully agree. And, I think that there's so much happening so quickly. And, I think even AI comes into the question, right? It comes into the equation in terms of what solutions and obstacles that we've yet to see will be also revealed and solved all through AI. And I think that's going to have a big role in some of the solutioning around these environmental issues.
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity for predictive analytics and streamlining processes and all of the things that large amount of data can provide to us. I think that's really going to be the driver long term in this space.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Adam.
Thank
I think
you.
at this point we have some time left to take some questions from our audience. So
Okay.
we'll just take a few minutes to review the questions that came in. And we also have a surprise guest joining us in just a few minutes. And we have the miracle of technology bringing us all together live. joined by our special guest, Bill Wilson, who's our Senior Vice President of Global Supply Chain and Sustainability Leader for Weichert. Hey, Bill, good to see you.
Hi, Laura. Hi, Adam. Hi, everybody.
So, Bill, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role before we start diving right into those questions? Because I see that they're still coming in. We have two, but I'm hoping that we'll see some more.
Yeah, sure. My name is Bill Wilson. I'm the Senior Vice President of Global Supply Chain, but I also wear the sustainability ownership hat at the executive level. Dave Bensavengo wanted to make sure that we had executive representation for sustainability, and that was a discussion that was brought around his direct reports, so we could build that for our future. So, Laura, I don't know if you'd like me to just kind of give some opening comments, or would you prefer to ask me some of the questions that you have?
Yeah, that would be great. It would be nice to hear a little bit from you about some of the initiatives. I mean, we already talked through a lot of them. So, yeah, actually, you know what? We've got the questions here. So let me go right into it. The first one is about predictably, it's the crystal ball question. So folks would really like to know what it is that we have in store. What do we see as the future of sustainability, specifically at Weichert? And what are our plans for the future?
Okay, yeah, that's great. I would like to just maybe fill in some of the gaps in terms of our sustainability program that you and Adam didn't get a chance to cover. Just to round things out, I think it's important to complement what Adam said about our clients are adding sustainability to their mission statements. That Weichert has done the same thing. You know, our mission statement of helping create futures where people thrive. Now, sustainability is an extension of our core beliefs. Okay, our clients have definitely validated these actions, and Adam talked about supplier selection and raising the bar on our internal processes, as he outlined in our partnership with EcoVadis. But just a little bit of a roadmap. In 21, one of our clients pushed us forward, and that's where EcoVadis came into the equation. We then signed up with EcoVadis for our supply chain, and we're pushing our supply chain to be more sustainable. Some of the non-environmental things that we did, though, we created a global CSR steering committee to help define our strategy globally. We created 2 colleague networks, diversity and inclusion, LGBTQIA, that, in my opinion, are thriving. Adam talked about ESG emissions and the greenhouse gas emissions. That led to the calculation of our scope 1 and scope 2. We do not currently have scope 3, so that's something that I'll answer Laura's question in just a minute. We also included in our partnership with TBB, Talent Beyond Boundaries, we included those suppliers in our supply chain, taking that refugee and displaced talent and assimilating them into our clients' programs as new hires. We are a participant in upward mobility. I don't know if many people in the company know that we're bringing in underrepresented young talent into Weichert for internships and new college graduates. And then lastly, we're continuing our extensive relationship with Move for Hunger and Discard and Donate. So all of those kinds of things led to the creation of our first, I think, really robust and formal CSR report last year, which we are going to refresh again at the end of this year. And as I turn to answer your question, Laura, a little bit more explicitly, what are we doing for the future? The bar keeps getting raised by our clients and in the world in general. One of the things that we have done this year is we have committed through the Science Based Target Initiative, SBTI, to net zero commitment. And we have, in order to do that more exactly, we need to complete our scope 3 emissions. So one thing builds upon the other. We have 2 years to make our create our formal target with the SBTI, and they have to ratify that target. And so to do that, we need to have our scope 3, and to do that, we have just contracted with a company called EarthScope. And this is a relatively new company. These companies are popping up, but this is a really fantastic organization. Whereas in our calculation of our scope 1 and scope 2, we did it the old-fashioned hard way. We went out and got the EPA calculator. It's an Excel-based template, and we just went in and we did the research on all of our expenses and typed it in. Now we're able to provide a free tool to our entire supply chain that will aggregate up for our performance as a our supply chain performance from a greenhouse gas emissions standpoint. It'll give us our metric in a rolled up fashion. And so we are going out with that in 2 weeks to announce and introduce that. And we have an onboarding plan. And so that's going to take us for the next 3 to 6 months to bring new and exciting solutions to our supply chain. It's called the SEM program, Supplier Emissions Measurement. So that's the big thing I would talk about. Of course, we have the, as I mentioned, the CSR report that we'll rewrite, and then EcoVadis is replete with corrective actions for us to work on. And Adam and I sit down and we review those, and we target different activities throughout the year.
You have not much to do though, right? I mean, small job. Wow, that's really exciting. I mean, honestly, I learned something new on this call just now. I was not aware of that, and that's really exciting. So kudos to you for all the effort. And I just love seeing that this is, this is the real deal, so to speak. I did get a couple of other questions, but before I go to those, I do want to shout out to the number of people that are dialed into this. I'm just thrilled. We've got over 100 people dial in from Canada. Hi, Canada. I just did a presentation last week in Vancouver on sustainability. We know that this is super important to Canadians. We've got folks from Europe. We have another session happening later today where I imagine we'll get more West Coast people attending, but for over 100 people to be attending a session like this, to me, speaks volumes. So thank you all for being here. The question that just came in is regarding smaller companies. And this is for either of you, Bill or Adam. What ways should the smaller companies start to prioritize sustainability within their mobility programs? Hashtag small wins. Love that.
Well, yes. So let me start with a more strategic response to that from an industry standpoint, and then maybe I'll flip it over to Adam if he has got additional comments. But from an industry standpoint, before Lynn Shotwell left as the head of WERC, she responded to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission with a request for our industry. And there were 3 requests. The first was global standardization. Our supply chains need a consistent international reporting framework, and she brought together the many different frameworks in our business to agree on that request. Secondly, was to create a small business threshold, recognizing that smaller companies are already struggling with tight labor forces, and adding onerous reporting would be damaging to their sustainability. And then thirdly, to provide a reasonable implementation time frame from the final ruling to implementation, recognizing that a lot of education is required and that takes time. And so we see that in our supply, the amount of educating that we're doing and really having to pull our supply chain forward in the process is a substantial requirement. I think, Adam, I don't know if you have any thoughts about more specific tactical things. If you shake your head up and down, I'll flip it to you. Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Yeah,
I'll keep
for small companies, I think expanding on a little bit of what I said earlier, just taking an inventory of what you are currently doing can be a great first step. So seeing what you recycle versus throw in the garbage can give you an idea of landfill diversion. That's usually done by weight. Bill mentioned the EPA calculator that's out there for calculating your scope 1 and scope 2. That's a free tool. So there are some things that are kind of low-hanging fruit that can be achieved by small companies with limited resource availability.
Excellent. We have another question. A lot of the conversation in our industry is around household goods. What are some of the other traditional areas that companies should pay closer attention to?
Well, that's a good observation about the household goods. I do think, I know the question is focused on the other areas, but let me address the household goods sector, because that is one of our biggest priorities, I should say. Rocco Burris is the head of WMN, our Weichert Move network. Rocco brought his entire network in for a meeting in Q1 of this year, and we talked about many business issues and performance issues, customer service, kinds of things that we could do. But we had a dedicated segment for sustainability, and we provided education. And I asked for a commitment that they would assign a resource in each of their companies to begin to scope out scope 1 and scope 2, what they would need to do to calculate their scope 1 and scope 2. We walked them through the calculator that we had at the time. Now we'll replace that with the new and better one. But I think spending that face-to-face time, now that we can do that, we got lots of questions from people after that, proof that they were investing in the resources. So it's things like that we need to do. I think for the rest of the supply chain, our approach is endemic. We're using the EcoVadis tool as our ability to create a more holistic solution for them. The EcoVadis covers more than just environment. There's environment, ethics, labor and human rights, and sustainable procurement. You get a grade on all of those areas. So whether you're a small company or a large company, all of that applies to you. So that's a fundamental tool for us. And then again, the EarthScope greenhouse gas emissions, that will also relate to all of our suppliers.
Great. And we have another. This is great. Keep the questions coming. As cost pressures increase with inflation, interest rates, etc., companies are going to put more focus on cost containment. I agree with that statement. Do you think their ESG efforts are going to decline as they start to focus more on costs?
Yeah, so I mean, there's cost, there's the political landscape, there's the client portfolio that you have. There are a lot of different pushes and pulls on a company's sustainability program. I think if a company has an altruistic desire to improve their sustainability, they're going to find a way to do that. I agree that reduction in some headcount could be harmful to the progress that companies make, but I think many companies in our industry are adding this responsibility to existing staff. I think it's populated with people who have a passion for improving the earth, improving our ESG environment, and so I think where there's a will, there's a way. But I think I would recognize that it's a risk that exists going forward.
Yeah, I mean, we're already seeing it in advisory services, requests for cost containment, cost control, cost sensitivity. I mean, that never really goes away. There's always some industry or some company that's facing cost pressure. I mean, we've all been doing this a long time, 23 years. I don't think I've ever seen a company say, we don't care about cost. That's just part of the equation that we live with all the time.
I think over time, though, this is going to become like legal, like procurement, like accounting. It's going to be just a requirement. It's not going to be discretionary in companies.
Right. Okay, I'm just taking a look. I don't see any other questions at this point. We're just about 40 minutes, so I think we'll go ahead and close out this session. Thank you all so much for your participation. There's always an opportunity to send us questions over email. I'm going to turn it over to our Vice President of Marketing, Tim McCarney, to close out our session. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Adam, so much for collaborating with me. You know, these sessions always, it's only maybe 35, 40 minutes, but a lot of effort goes on in behind the scenes. So I really appreciate your contributions. Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Thank you.
No worries, and not a very elaborate process to close out the session today. Just a reminder that you can find all kinds of great information from the subject matters you see, subject matter experts you see on the screen right here. You can see their writings on our blog, weichertworkforcemobility.com/blog. And please also follow us on your social media channel of choice, so you're staying in the loop regarding upcoming webinars, webcasts, and other projects of interest to those who manage mobility programs. Thank you so much for your attendance today, and we hope to see you on the next program very soon. And also, thanks to our experts. Have a great day.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.